Nice to see you. Hey, Jeff. Miss Reed, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Looking for another round of Christmas gift suggestions
Hey,
from
it's
my.
not here.
I thought-
I have to do December meeting.
That's right.
I have to
That's right.
keep you in good standing.
I'll talk to you later.
I'm here for everyone, by the way.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we all appreciate that. Okay, so you ready now?
Yes, sir.
I apologize to the people online who've been watching this. All right, so let's call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please, ma'am, and let's get started.
Chairman Timaeus.
I'm here.
Board Member Beaver.
Here.
Board Member Hilliard absent. Board Member Rowe.
Here.
Board Member Sorrell.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we have a quorum. Let's talk about the minutes for a little bit. This is from the meeting November 22, 2021. One item agenda. Everybody had a look at that. Anybody got any comment about that? Or is there a motion dealing with that?
I'll move to approve the minutes of November 22nd.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Here's what we're up to. Anybody that wants to speak at all, stand up, raise your right hand. We're going to swear in everybody at once, and then we don't have to mess with that again. So if you would, please, staff, anybody that wants to speak for or against, make any kind of comment at all, because it is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right. So at this point, here's where we are. We're expecting one more member. You need 4 votes to win. We can proceed with 4. Your better bet is to take a recess now, wait for one more to come, and that way you can lose one and still win. Okay? So what we're going to do then is let's take a time out, let's recess, and we can stream, not stream, whatever you guys want to do. But for right now, let's stand in recess, okay? All right. And when Mr. Hilliard comes, we'll be up and running. And we'll go straight into the stuff, and we won't have to do this, the preliminaries. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Tell me about yourself. news, yeah. You just made full bird about a year ago. All right. You back on? All right. We're going to resume and pick up with hearing on file PZ 2021-403. This is a request for a variance to the required lot width, lot depth, and lot area.
Chairman, before we start the report, can you, I guess, state for the record that we have a new board member who's present and that the quorum has changed?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. We can do that. We've added Mr. Hilliard to the dais, and so we now have a quorum plus one.
Apologize for my tardiness.
That's all right. So let's pick up. Let's hear the staff report on this item, please.
Mr. Faust intends to split one tract of land into two parcels. The first lot with the address of 1610 Washington Boulevard with the shop will have a proposed lot area of 5,401 square feet, depth of 81.16 feet, and width of 66.59 feet. The second lot with the address of 2996 Avenue C will have a lot area of 4,589 square feet, depth of 66.59 feet, and width of 68.87 feet. Strict compliance with the city's zoning regulations requires the lots with GCMD zoning to have a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet, a depth of 100 feet, and a width of 75 feet. The intention for the lot split is for the owners to have the ability to sell 1610 Washington and keep their residence at 2996 Avenue C. If this request is granted, Faust Engineering will be able to legally split this land via meets and bounds. Staff received 0 letters in favor and 0 in opposition. As you can see, this is on the corner. Washington right here, Avenue C on this side. This is lot 1. This is the one that has 5,400 square feet, or 401 square feet, sorry. The depth of 81.16 feet and width of 66.59 feet. And this is the shop up front off of Washington. Lot 2 is back here. This is 2996 Avenue C. And it will have a lot area of 4,589 square feet, depth of 66.59 feet, and width of 68.87 feet. This is a view of the front from Washington Boulevard. And this is a view off of Avenue C at the residence. Mr. Faust is present here.
Explain to me if this, well, there's going to be the proposal is a split. The first lot is the only one that's was requesting a variance. The second lot would require a variance as well, wouldn't it?
Right, they're asking for variances to both lots because they're adding that split. I'll go back to the.
I see both lots, but all right. So yes. And explain to me what is meant by conservation and revitalization comprehensive plan. What is that? That is part of the page that starts with a legal description. Some type of a plan for the neighborhood?
Oh, I see.
What is that?
So that is an area that right now we are trying to conserve and revitalize. So we're trying to make sure that we bring in, businesses towards the arterial streets, and then along the, Avenue C is I believe it was a secondary or
Yeah, they
major.
just finished that big expansion.
Yeah, they just expanded Avenue C, but I don't know if they expanded all the way out. I'd like to see those photographs
Yeah.
again.
and Avenue C is that major collector street. So along Washington, they are trying to see more shops on that route because that would be, standard planning. And then along going up into the residential area, they're trying to conserve residential areas. And then we also have certain empowerment zones where they can come in and build with expedited permitting, some tax break incentives, those kinds of things. But it is to revitalize that area. We want more things to happen in that area.
Show us the photographs again of the actual buildings.
This is the front.
Okay.
And that actually, we just received a certificate of occupancy. It's no longer going to be a tax office. They are putting in a appliance shop there, but they have not gotten a finalized CO yet.
Okay.
I believe they have to fix their electricity in there.
Okay. And if it's an appliance shop, what's the parking requirement for the appliance shop?
I can find that out.
Can they meet that?
You're trying to revitalize it.
So
Let them put
during those
appliance
inspections,
shop
we will have civil go out. I'm not sure if civil has gone out, but they're the ones that check the parking spaces for the engineering department, but I can get you the off-street parking requirement for it.
Sure.
I go by there every day. Redoing the street and drainage. Washington, beautiful. I drive by there every day.
So not speaking on engineering's behalf because Brandon Belair, the traffic control engineer, has the ultimate say-so. It should be about one space per 300 square feet of gross floor area.
Okay. Show me the building on the survey again. Here, I got it. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions to witness? All right, who else wants to talk for, against, or otherwise make a comment on this proposed split of a lot at 1610 Washington and 2996 Avenue C?
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Please identify yourself, tell us what your relationship is to the property, and then tell us whatever you want to.
All right, my name is Richard Faust. I'm with Faust Engineering and Surveying. I'm working with the client on this project. What we're trying to do is correct an issue where we have two structures on one lot. She's trying to sell the property, so we're trying to help her put together a legal descriptions for the conveyance of the property. We constructed that line between lots 1 and 2 to give equal separation between the two structures, to meet building setback line requirements. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough property here to meet the requirements for both lots to have 7,500 square feet. Both lots will have access. Lot 2 will have access from Avenue C, and Lot 1 will have access from Washington Boulevard, existing concrete drives. Be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak for, against, or otherwise comment on this, this request?
I hope that you approve it.
Either one. Go ahead.
I'm with the Washington and the Avenue C. I hope that you approve it because I really.
Well, you, don't tell us from there. If you're going to talk to us, come up,
Okay.
stand here, tell us who you are and what your relationship is to the property, and let's make a good record of what your comment is. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Gerald Henry.
Yes, sir.
I own a property on 2990 Avenue C.
Yes, sir. And
Right
where is that in relation to this?
Well, the house they showed,
Yes, sir.
I'm right next door to it.
Okay, good.
And I just got this letter Saturday, and I didn't really know what they were gonna do with the property. I don't know if they was gonna keep the house there and keep the business, because I really don't wanna, you know what I'm saying? I don't mind the business being there, but I would like a house to, something separate us from the business. That's the only concern that I have. And I heard it was an appliance, it's trying to turn into an appliance store, whatever, appliance repair store. So I don't have a problem with the appliance repair store, but I don't want the, you know what I'm saying? I don't want the property as a whole to go, and then you have a business directly up against my house.
Completely understand.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else want to speak for, against, or otherwise make a comment on this request? Hearing none. Discussion? Tear it all down and make one big business out of it. Who knows? Probably. It's actually written as an appliance retail shop, not an appliance repair shop. No, you're not. And you've got a parking problem. There is a light. That's a major intersection.
Maybe it'll create a major, cause there's a convenience store right here.
Yeah.
Across the street. And it's very busy. This is a very busy corner.
Yeah, I'll run it. Good, that's a good way to get out of downtown.
This is very true. Especially now, it's.
But,
Yeah.
well, somebody owns it. They've done something with it up to this point. So, but, man, this, Richard, this, in the education aspect, this is another one of those situations in which, if you take these things at, face value, literally, there aren't very many people that come here that literally meet the criteria. Most of the time, we give stuff with gratitude and grace, because you're not supposed to create your own problems and then ask for And so the question is, at this point, frankly, I get legalistic about it. I don't think they meet the criteria. The question is whether there's a motion to grant this out of grace, whether there's a motion to deny it for whatever reason. And so that's, when we turn the microphones back on, I'm just gonna ask for a motion, and we'll take whatever motion, and we see if it gets a second, and then we take a vote. It is grace.
It is.
It is.
Most of
Nearly everything that comes to us is grace.
is already.
I don't know.
Somebody ready to make a motion?
You know, if you grant it, in my mind, it's gonna allow a house to stay there as a house and a business stay there as a business. If we don't, then what's it gonna happen to a lot eventually?
Or between the shopping center or the laundromat or,
Who knows? It'll be a single piece of property. And,
it will not become single family, well, I would say it will not.
It will not become a single family. No, I don't think so. No. I don't think so. And so, but it's not, I don't think it's that I planned that. I look at this conservation revitalization, is that really conserve anything, is it revitalize anything? Is that a good reason for grace?
And that's what he was alluding to, is actually it's gonna make it worse. If they end up stacking appliances out in front of the field, like on Lovett Street.
But what we're doing here is not gonna
I
happen.
know.
Well, we can't control that. We can't necessarily
Mine was
presume that, but.
based on the question of whether is it gonna revitalize or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, and mine is based on, is there criteria for grace?
Right.
Because that's the way I see it.
That's how I say it too.
Well, we don't know when she bought it. I mean, she bought something that was pre-existing. I mean,
She may have inherited it, we don't know
yeah.
that. I'm not worried about that.
Well, I'm just saying, we've got, this is not the whole place along Washington Boulevard. I'm sure that there's all kinds of business. You know, and
Most of it.
our city let that happen years ago.
Yeah.
By not enforcing, any kind of building or park.
I understand.
So,
Do we preserve that mess, or do we, or do you call it a mess? Do we preserve the status quo? I don't know. One of the questions that I thought about but didn't ask, and I didn't think it was necessarily appropriate, is this a rental building, or is there somebody that really owns it? Is it?
I understood they were selling it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's probably a rental house.
yeah, probably.
The neighbor would prefer to stay a house.
I understand. I understand. But then you've got, somebody's gonna live behind the business. When they put a business there, there'll be some kind of a separator, there'll be a fence, there'll be something.
Not always.
But not always. You hope. I just,
If she ever wants to, which she probably will, she'll bring us up to a bunch of property. And then she'll even,
maybe, who knows?
maybe, or they,
Or maybe she's not, who knows who she is. I don't know. And I'm not, again, that's not the criteria for my decision.
do we have a motion? I mean.
Well, do we have anybody here who's inspired to make a motion? If I turn the microphones on and say we're back to make a motion, is somebody gonna say yes, me?
I'm in favor of making a motion to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then you make the motion and we'll take a vote. All right, so we're back on the record, and I'm looking for a motion for or against granting this variance across all these criteria for to split one lot into two. Is there a motion for this request or any motion against this request?
I'll make a motion in favor of granting the variance.
Is there a second to a motion in favor of granting the variance?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Beaver makes the motion, Mr. Rowe seconds. Let's call a roll for a vote.
Chairman Tobias, excuse me.
I'm against it.
Board Member Beaver,
For it.
Board Member Hilliard,
I'm against it.
Board Member Rowe,
For.
and Board Member Sorrell.
I'm against it.
All right, so item number 1 on the agenda fails at a vote of 3-2. We're going to item number 2 on the agenda, which is file PZ 2021-404, an appeal of a determination made by an administrative official about the classification of a business at 8180 East X Freeway, Suite B. Could we have the staff report on that, please?
Okay. On August 17th, 2021, staff inquired on a request to sell alcohol at 8180 East Tex Freeway, Suite B. It was stated that the daiquiri shop will have a drive-through. If there is a drive-through with no customer seating, they would be classified as a convenience store, which is approved without a specific use permit in most commercial zoning districts. On November 13th, 2021, staff received a commercial alteration permit for the daiquiri shop at 8180 East Tex, Suite B. The floor plan revealed 7 bar stools, 4 table seats, including an area to play dartboard games. Given the floor plan received, staff determined this now to be classified as a drinking place. Additionally, staff did confirm that no food sales will be sold at this facility, just wine-based daiquiris. The property is zoned as general commercial multiple family dwelling district. A drinking place within that zoning district requires an approved SUP prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy per 28.03.023 permitted uses. In conclusion, this is a request for an appeal of a determination made by an administrative official that a business allowing on-premise consumption of alcohol with a proposed 7 bar stools and 4 table seats, not operating as an eating place, is determined to be a drinking place. Staff received 0 letters in favor and 0 in opposition.
Any questions of the witness? I have a few if you don't. I always do. I'm just a curious son of a gun. Okay, so let's talk about eating places and drinking places. And let's get something on the record about which is which and what criteria defines an eating place and a drinking place. So we're all on the same page about what those status, what defines those status.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide just because I put the drinking places definition up there,
Okay.
but I'll do the eating places first.
Looks like drinking places here.
Right. So on the permitted use table, there's eating places
Okay.
up here, and then there's drinking places. So I wrote so that permitted use table here, these SIC codes are generated from this book. And I can pass this around after I read
And
it
the
out
book
loud.
is
if
what?
It is the Standard Industrial Classification Manual, 1987.
Published by who?
Yes.
Government, engineers?
Right there in
Hmm?
that. Yeah, who is that?
Executive Office of the President of the United States. Oh, yes. Executive.
Okay, so it's a federal
Sorry.
government.
I'm sorry.
All right, so it's a federal government classification.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and so give me a definition of each, please.
Okay. So 5812, eating places.
Did you put that? Do we have a slide of that or no?
I don't.
Okay, that's
I only
okay.
put the
Go ahead and
drinking
just read
places
it.
up there. Establishments primarily engage in the retail sale of prepared food and drinks for on-premise or immediate consumption. Caterers and industrial institutional food service establishments are also included in this industry. And then it gives a list of, you know, hamburger stands, ice cream stands, lunch
Okay.
counters.
Read the criteria for one more time.
Okay. Establishments primarily engage in the retail sale of prepared food and drinks for on-premise or immediate consumption. Caterers and industrial institutional food service establishments are also included in this industry.
Okay, is it on-premise and immediate, or on-premise or immediate?
Or.
And on-premise or immediate, okay, thank you. And the next criteria, drinking places, is
Yes.
this?
That's 5813, drinking places.
Okay,
Establishments primarily engage in the retail sale of alcoholic drinks such as beer, ale, wine, and liquor for consumption on the premises. The sale of food frequently accounts for a substantial portion of the receipts of these establishments.
okay,
And then again, it just lists a few.
okay. And
Examples.
so what the so now, instead of an eating place, staff thinks this is a drinking place.
Right. So what we had originally anticipated was that it would actually be classified under a convenience store, which I can read to you guys if you would prefer.
That's okay.
Um,
If we're to this, let's make a decision between these two, because
Okay.
that's what's been presented to us.
So the original one was because it was gonna be a drive-through, and no one was going inside the,
Right. So
facility?
because it was a drive-through, it would be classified as a convenience store, because you can go into a convenience store, you can purchase a 6-pack of beer and you can leave, or you can purchase a bottle of wine and leave. So because there was presented stools and table, you know, a table with seats around it, including like some gaming areas, that means that people are invited in to consume. So whenever it's on-premise consumption, that's when it kicks in drinking place.
Comes a bar.
Right.
Just for clarification, what is P and what is S?
So P is permitted, S is specific use permit.
Okay.
So, and if there's nothing, then it's not permitted in that zoning.
so, do you, and maybe this is an opinion question.
It is specific.
Do you think that the intent, because, we have someone going in and actually sitting down, they have to park? So then now it comes in our parking requirements. So the specific use permit, you have to make sure there's enough
Parking.
seating and parking. Is that, do you think that was the intent
Yeah,
for
so,
the way the ordinance is stated for this type of establishment?
and I also think it's for the 200-foot property owner notice, just to give them, you know, a heads up of what's coming next to them. That's one of the intentions behind it.
Sure.
Because it's state law mandated that we have to, any, you know, specific use permit, variance, we have to, or even appeal, we have to do a 200-foot property owner notice.
Okay.
Which within those, I can pull up the map, but I believe it's only really that block that's right there, that receives the 200 feet.
And so the difference in classification is not whether or not they can open a business, but whether or not a specific use permit is going to be required as a prerequisite to opening.
If it's
And
gonna
the
be
question to
required
us
as a
is-
drinking, or classified as a drinking place.
And the question to us is, will a determination of drinking place stand? That's the question. The
So,
request is overturn drinking place.
right,
right?
so
Okay.
what they want is for
They
it
want
to
any-
not be
they want it to be
classified
any-
and to not have a specific use permit.
Right.
So in order to not classify this as a drinking place, we wouldn't be able to allow on-premise consumption, which means the floor plan would have to change, where there's no seating available. It would be like you purchase, you leave.
Well, I understand that, but,
With the drive-through.
but if you didn't, within the classification system, if it's not a drinking place, and it's not an eating place, what is it? Because the question, the part of the question in my mind when I read this is this simply a question to us to affirm or leave stand, don't disturb a determination of drinking place, versus throw that away, start over, and you guys go out and figure out what you're going to classify? Or is this a question to us? Drinking place determination is there. Do we leave it undisturbed? But if we disturb it, eating place is adopted. Because that's the way it was presented to us.
Okay, so let me jump in on this one.
Please.
So the appeal is to appeal the decision to convert it from a convenience store designation to a drinking place designation. And so the board now is faced with either to, as you said earlier, affirm the previous decision, or let stand the previous decision that it is classified as a drinking place, or overturn it. And that is where it stops. If you decide that it does not meet the classification of a drinking place, then it's brought back for them to make some other determinations as it relates to that. So anything past that decision that you guys make is fanciful. It's not really.
We don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
We either let this stand,
and you can't
or we
base your
decide that it's not accurate.
Yeah, and you can't base your decision off of that. You just kind of, does it meet, does.
Okay, then becomes a simpler question to us. The simpler question is, can the applicant bear the burden of proof that drinking place is wrong?
Yes,
That's the question.
because they are appealing the decision. So
That's
the
question.
applicant has the burden to prove to
Okay,
you that
so-
it does not.
So now the only thing that's questioned back to us is this an establishment primarily engaged in the retail sale of alcoholic drinks such as beer, ale, wine, and liquor for consumption on the premises? Sale of food frequently accounts for a substantial portion of the receipts of the establishment. That's the only question we have to answer.
That's
So-
that definition right there.
That
We
definition
apply
right
that
there.
definition to this building,
Yeah,
to this facility.
yeah. And, well, the question is, did staff accurately apply it? Can the applicant prove to us that the staff inadequately or improperly applied it? Okay, so now the question is straight. Now I'm ready to hear the rest of it. I'm sorry it took that long, but I mean, it's.
Here to answer all your questions.
Because, well, that's part of it, but, because it is a technical deal.
Before we get deep into it, though, I
Okay.
think it's important that they note that the historical preference, they applied for it as a convenience store. Applied for it to be as a drive-through, which falls in the convenience store. And that what changed it was the designation was the new floor plan.
Right.
And so you can't just come in and say, well, it's a ED place, or that's not what the board is going to do. It's whether or not it was improperly moved. The classification was changed from a convenience store to a drinking place. That is where you are.
So what we have to figure
I-
out, when staff originally saw it, was it a non-seating type environment?
Yes, and they classified it as a convenience store.
Right.
Well,
And then,
I hate to disagree with you,
okay.
but
And
in
it's
my
fine.
mind, what happened before does not matter, except as historical information that may guide us.
That's why our preference is as the historical
Okay.
history is that it was previously classified as a convenience store because of the existing floor plan, and what changed the designation was the floor plan. And so
I-
that, for
I-
historical purposes, I wanted that to be clear.
I get that, and I understand that. But what I understand the question before us is now is, irrespective of evolution, we have a business that we're going to ask this man to describe to us. And we now have a classification that was applied to it. And he bears the burden of proof that this classification is wrong based on what's there, what's planned now, way the business is gonna operate based on what's intended now. And that's the decision we have to make.
Yeah, and if the previous classification was correct, you still have to classify.
Well, if the previous class, if the previous classification was correct and they've changed the floor plan, then they're gonna have to go back and re-examine that anyway based on the current floor plan. Okay. So again, so I hate to be obvious about it, but now we're back where I was.
Yeah, the engineers over here are going, what are you talking about?
We're back to what do we have now? Does it fit this? Okay? All right. Any more from you?
No. Would you like for me to go back to the floor plan or stay here?
No, ma'am. Unless you guys want to see the floor plan, I'd like for him to have these words in front of him when he's talking to us.
Okay.
Okay. So, why don't you step up, tell us who you are, what your relationship is to the business.
Yes, sir.
Now you understand what we're trying to decide
Yes, sir.
and the criteria that you've got to meet.
Yes, sir.
Bear burden of proof. So, state your name, your relationship, tell us whatever you want to, and then we'll go from there.
Great. I look forward to answering everything, too. My name is Baptiste Brunner. I'm the founder, president, CEO, primary shareholder of CEHB Enterprises, the LLC that looks to open Daiquiri Boom, a company that we are naming after the former oil town that Beaumont used to be, naming it after Spindletop. I am a Louisiana native and a Texan by choice, and I am just glad to be here today before you. I'm also a financial advisor at AIG Retirement Services, the only financial servicing firm that's based in Texas, and I've been servicing the Golden Triangle area for the past 3 years, serving the public servants that have served us all throughout the school districts. I am gladly accompanied today by my beautiful wife, Ashley Carey, a West Texas native and a Texas A&M Aggie. I'd like to say thank you for having me today and allowing me to state my case and appealing the necessity of an SUP.
Okay.
And by the end of my hearing, I hope you're all able to understand my predicament. The spirit of the zoning variance will be kept strongly, and why a special use permit is not necessary. And before we begin, I know that we have lots of questions. I'd like to ask if the board has been given an adequate amount of time to review all submitted documentation for this appeal and answer any questions you may have regarding this case. Should your question reflect a topic I intended to discuss already, I will let you know, but for the sake of time, I will let you know that we intend to cover your question during the rest of this.
Okay.
If there are any questions which cover topics outside of what we intend to bring to light, we'd be happy to answer that now.
All right. We're not going to stand for questions from you.
Sure.
We've had adequate time to
Absolutely.
prepare, and if we're not prepared, we'll certainly ask questions
Absolutely,
to get
sir.
ourselves what we need to be. What we don't need is a lot of history.
Okay.
What we do need is
Getting down to it.
get down to it, tell us what is the building,
Sure.
what's intended for the building, and how it's supposed to run, and does it meet this definition? or
Absolutely.
not?
So aside from what was entered in our appeal documentation, we have additional backing to keeping the spirit of the ordinance alive and well, along with other important points. To mention how we got to this point today, just want to review my email thread that was mentioned earlier with the city zoning department. On August 17th, the zoning department mentioned that we received a request for Daiquiri Boom to serve alcohol. Will the establishment be serving to-go wine-based daiquiris? I just said, I hope all is well. Correct, the establishment will serve wine-based daiquiris with a drive-through. And please let me know if you have any questions. They then told me that I would need an SUP in order to move forward. I asked if we could speak over the phone for a few minutes to just clarify anything, and that's when I was told that there was no need to mention that because the zoning director had his words and said that there was no need for this SUP. Come 11/17 or come 11/1, I was told that I would need one, and I've missed 3 meetings to get an SUP since, and now I'm going to have to wait through January unless this appeal works today. But because of this confusion, we could have avoided that phone call. I'm now $15K in the hole of non-refundable funds, which is roughly 3.5 years of savings for me. But a point to mention, if you would, may I see the zoning map that we had that was included in the packet? The actual zoning map, if you would, the one that says the GCMD or the LI zoning. I believe it would be like page 3 or 4.
PowerPoint, but I can
Okay.
that.
We,
Does everyone
we've got
Great,
this.
thank you, sir.
Okay, we have it in the packet.
Awesome.
Okay.
If you refer to the zoning map provided by the city in the appeal notice packet, one can see that the property straddles both a GCMD, which is the zone in question, and LI with the northern portion of the property, or the other end cap suite lies outside of this zone that's in question. My question is, would I need an SUP? Should I have chosen the other suite just a few feet away? But also there's a new development under construction adjacent to the property on that northern LI zone. This, along with other multiple developments in the area, are signs of economic growth. And at this time, however, we, along with the convenience store, are really some of the only retail food and or beverage locations for a 2 to 3 mile radius. Now, according to my architect who drew my plans, zoning maps are drawn to protect city inhabitants' property values. And again, this area north of the bayou has multiple large developments underway. And like these developments, our business will not impede or cause any detriments to our surrounding neighborhoods we look to serve. My architect also mentions, most importantly in his point, the existing building was permitted with an M mercantile occupancy classification for the entire building. The A2 occupancy classification for this projected TABC licensed facility and lease space is permitted under the IBC with a 2-hour fire-rated demising wall separating it from the already occupied gas station convenience store located in the same building. So I am a part of the convenience store technically. This is just a first-time fit-up. So this does break out the question of why we are part of the convenience store. My architect also believes there's no need for the SUP based on this alone because we're the same building and zoned as such. Additionally, the spirit of the variance is to not allow defined drinking establishments in the GCMD zones. A drinking establishment, to my knowledge, is defined as an area that sells alcoholic beverage and no food while also offering a place to congregate. We admit we are not selling food at this time. We are a small startup and we're unable to afford the additional necessities for food service, like a sprinkler system or a grease trap. However, we have already received a grease trap exemption. And the other costly needs that come with bringing in food. However, I do wish I could share my gumbo and red beans and rice recipes to the citizens of Beaumont. The main problem here is that this is considered a drinking establishment when in fact it is not. On the earlier page, it said, if it was primarily engaged for consumption on premise. We are primarily engaged for off-premise drinking. The only TABC license that allows us to open our business and operate like this is a BG permit for beer and wine. And the state requires that we have some form of indoor seating inside our establishment. And we designed our interior layout to take up as much space as possible and comply with all handicap regulations, fire marshal capacity regulations, and the state's minimum seating requirement. So we are in a catch-22 here. We have to provide indoor seating to have this permit, but in order to do this property, or in order to do this business, for this zone, we're not allowed to have any seating. The seating is strictly there just to satisfy the state's minimum requirement. But we don't intend anybody to come in. And if you refer to my distributor's letter and the PowerPoint from Z. Fareed, who owns the most daiquiri shops in the state with Daiquiri Island to go, you'll see that no one congregates in these establishments, especially when following the business model they both use. Mr. Fareed states in his attestation that over 99% of drinks sold at NCAP drive-through locations, similar to mine, are consumed by the customer off-premise. Mr. Fareed assured me that this number is in fact practically 100%. However, he states 99% as there is the occasional customer who does not have a car and walks in to grab a drink to go. Mr. Fareed has also left his contact information in his attestation and encourage you to reach out to him to verify his statement or ask any questions if needed. To add, while doing my research in this industry, I visited myself almost a dozen of these daiquiri shops to check their viability and never once saw anyone inside. With this information alone, I hope you see how the spirit of the variance will be kept. I'd also like to mention that I paid for most of my college and some of my college tuition from working in bars for 4 years in Baton Rouge. I worked the front door, was a bartender and a bouncer, and knowing what happens in clubs and bars where people congregate, one thing I can assure you is I do not want anybody coming inside. I don't want to deal with fighting, drama, opposing team fans getting mad at the end of a game. I quite literally want all of that to stay outside of my window, and in this case, in my drive-through window, and I hope to create accommodations that harshly imply that. I also would like to invite you, city officials, or anyone else to visit my location at any time to ensure that I'm holding that true. Additional ways we were hoping to keep the spirit of the variance included that were not included in the appeal As far as the board games go that were mentioned, that is there to just take up space. If we did not put games there, we'd have to put in another 2 tables. Our bar stools and customer seating are purely the cheapest and most unaccommodating of seating. By this, I mean we're just using cheap metal bar stools to satisfy the state's regulations. We don't want to make any kind of comfortable seating. We want to make seats that just say you're in and you're out. We'll also implement a 1-drink limit for inside patrons and have a posted notice that our drive-thru is our priority. If people walk inside while we have a busy drive-thru line, they will need to wait for us to satisfy drive-thru orders first. Another option we're waiting to hear a response from TABC on, but do not believe that this will be an issue. We plan to close our dining area by 8 o'clock, Sunday through Wednesday, and at 9 o'clock, Thursday through Saturday. So again, this is strictly to try to satisfy the needs of those who do not have cars, because there is a lot of foot traffic in our area, for people to be allowed to walk in to grab a drink to go. However, we are trying to be as least accommodating as possible to our interior patrons, if we ever have any. Lastly, I'd just like to mention that this is an ideal option for those people who are vulnerable or worried about COVID. And those who worry about going inside other establishments or grocery stores for their adult beverage needs will have our shop as a no-worry option for COVID in the days that we live in. I'd like to thank everybody again for their time today and for reviewing my appeal. We look forward to starting our business in Beaumont and hope to see you see our hardship, but most importantly, see why and how we are respecting the zoning variance. My wife and I look forward to leaving the overwhelmingly large metro area of Houston, becoming citizens of the Golden Triangle, and we hope you allow us to do that sooner than later. If you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to take those now. And I also hope I've satisfied the definitions.
It's difficult to understand from the drawings, and we got them in small, and we've seen a flash through. Are you, when you're in this Suite B, is that a carve out of a convenience store that you're telling us, or what are you telling us about?
Currently, sir, it's not even registered as Suite B. I have to, my building permits need to be approved for us to even have a suite on the map. However, it is technically a part of the gas station. It is zoned as part of the gas station. We're just putting a demising wall between the two, and this is for a first-time fit-up.
Okay. And is there going to be a communication, a door, through that demising wall into the convenience store? Or is this going to be a hard wall and your business is a totally separate business?
It's a totally separate business.
Okay.
If it does satisfy the board, we'd be happy to implement a door, though, to connect us to the convenience store. I'm sure the owner would not mind that.
I don't know that it makes, I don't know what difference it makes exactly, but I thought it might make some.
Right. Yes, sir.
And it may make some to the TABC. It may make some to the people that run the gas station.
Right. Well, the only other option is to be defined as a Q permit, which is for gas stations to be able to sell prepackaged products. We're not allowed to do that because we package our product on site fresh there and then.
So, let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
You said the state, for you to get the permits that you need to sell the daiquiris, the state is requiring the seating. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
The
Did I
state,
understand that right?
yes, sir. The state requires indoor seating to a minimum capacity, which is what we've fulfilled here.
For their permit.
Yes, sir, for their permit.
So I'm gonna ask this question, it's a historical question. We can ask this, right?
Yeah, sure.
So your original submittal to the
Yes, sir.
city, had you already obtained your permit from the state for your liquor license or whatever this is considered?
What originally happened was, sir, we applied in early August. What they originally reached out to on August 17th in the email thread previously read, we submitted our TABC permit application, and we also applied as Suite B at that time. Now it's
No floor plan.
with no floor plan at the time because we were just submitting our TABC permit to wait through the 2.5-month typical process to receive that in order to move forward with the $8-9 grand that it costs to pay for an architect, and then plus moving forward with our building.
Okay. So staff saw nothing other than a permit request.
Yes, sir. They saw a permit request when they reached out in August, or by staff, you mean the zoning department, sir?
Yes.
They saw on August 17th, they saw the BG permit request, correct, and they asked if this was going to be a drive-through with wine-based daiquiris, in which I affirmed.
When staff goes to review that, we are reviewing for a 200-foot door-to-door distance from like any hospital, church, or school. That's what we reviewed for those.
Right. That is the state's minimum requirement to be over 1,000 feet away from a public school, 500 feet away from a church, and 200 feet away from a public hospital. And those were the requirements that we were able to satisfy. This is strictly local as far as what our hardships are right now.
And what kind of determination did the zoning department give you at that time?
On August 17th, sir, that is when they said that there was no need to worry about an SUP, as their director of the zoning department overlooked our request and said that we are okay. It was after we submitted our building permit when they came back and said, sorry, we read it wrong. And again, that we missed 3 more SUP meetings in the meantime, and now we have to wait till late January to get our SUP, unless the board finds it necessary to appeal it now.
Did you, once they said you needed an SUP, did you look into the procedure and the process that our city has for obtaining that at that time?
For obtaining an SUP, well, they sent that to me originally on August 17th, but then when I clarified what we were, that's when they said that there's no need for the SUP. They sent it to me again that day. They called on the morning of November 1st, I believe, saying, hey, we're going to need you to apply for a special use permit. I responded with saying that I was already told on August 17th that I would not need one. I forwarded them the messages, and that's when they read through it, and they said I would need one, and then sent me what the appeal process would be, or that's when they sent what the SUP process would be. I know that I'll have to submit by December 22nd in order to be on the for January 24th. Yes, sir.
What kind of games are you gonna have?
Just 2 dart games, and why? It's because we put 1 dart on a board, and we can put a piece of tape 10 feet away. That takes up space right there to where we're not going to be forced by the state to have to put in additional seating, or at least from the fire marshal for additional seating for capacity. Other than that, the games are not going to be, heck, we might not even buy darts for the games. Nobody plans on playing them.
But if the state only requires you to have 7 seats,
It's not implied. They don't explicitly say how many seats you need. They just say that you will need a minimum portion of seating, which we found that if we covered the bar with seats and put in a table with the handicap accessible seating area, we would be able to satisfy all. I'm sorry, sir?
it gives you 12 seats.
Yes, sir. We did it specifically under 15 to satisfy the 1 bathroom need for the city. But if it makes it better to add another dart game to take out the table, we will lower the bar in another place to make another handicap accessible spot. It's whatever it takes to adjust this right now. But I can assure you that with the supplier, these are very popular in Houston. There's about 20 or 30 of these kind of shops in Houston. I'm looking to bring this to Beaumont. And I've visited many of these shops. The gentleman who supplies all of these shops and the owner of most of these shops has confirmed that nobody, practically nobody, drinks in these locations. And I, again, invite everybody to come visit and hold us to that, but nobody comes inside. Yes, sir.
The problem I have, if there are bar stools there,
Right.
and you're saying it's to go,
Right. Yes, sir.
and then you have dart games there, then eventually they go hang around.
I can see why you'd feel that way. But again,
mean-
if you can see that we are taking up 75% of the area for storage, the bar. I have an overly large office built. We have a larger utility area designed, a larger bathroom than the minimum requirements. And it's just to take up as much space as possible, because if we had smaller areas like that, I believe that the fire marshal or zoning would require us to have more additional seating inside. This is not to allow people to come inside, sir. I can assure you that we don't, again, I don't want people inside. It's a lot more profitable to have one person drive through the drive-through than have one person sit at the bar for an hour and a half. So we're going to implement any kind of regulations possible to make that as clear to the general public that this is a to-go based shop, and these are what the other to-go based shops do as well. Just minimal seating to satisfy state's needs, but typically nobody wants to come inside. These are not accommodating locations.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes, sir.
just like the state, board said that you had to have, to get your license, you had to have this floor plan or some semblance of this, you had to have some seating, all right?
I'm sorry, sir.
The state board of licensing for this establishment told you in their ordinances or in their requirements that you have to have seating, correct?
Not the board directly, sir, just the BG permit calls for it, and my,
Permit requirements.
yes, sir,
That's
and,
what I mean. You can agree, there's no doubt,
yes, sir,
it was a state requirement.
yes, sir.
Amy, go back and put that definition back up on the board for drinking, please. What we were saying earlier is that you have to prove to us that you do not meet that definition.
Correct, yes, sir. Matt,
You meet that definition.
I meet this definition as a drinking place, sir. No, if you refer to the supplier's letter as well as the other daiquiri shop owner, Z. Fareed, they let you know that this is not an establishment primarily engaged in the sale of alcohol beverages on premise. It is primarily engaged in drive-through business, sir.
But the state has said that you have to allow for.
TABC does, yes, sir.
On premise.
Yes, sir. We have to allow at least seating for on premise.
Right, but you have a minimum that you have to meet. Seven seats, which you had told us earlier, is
It's what
that
we believe.
the permit requires 7. But I don't understand why the dartboards, I don't understand why the city would require you to put tables in. You can have open space.
I believe it was a fire marshal's purpose. This is something my architect and I were discussing, and he was
Fire
mentioning
marshal,
this.
I would think, would not want you to put more things to impede people's
Right.
ability to get out. Because there's a bunch of places in Beaumont that have big open spaces and a few tables.
Correct.
The dartboard and I'm with him, is the dartboard's gonna make people stay. You're right by an
Right.
apartment complex,
Right.
correct? That's right behind you?
It's right behind us, yes, sir.
Okay, so a lot of those you will have a lot of walking traffic. Okay, I know that you don't know Beaumont, but we know that area, and that convenience store depends on a lot of foot traffic.
It
And
does,
you can
sir.
sit and watch that there is a lot of foot traffic, and you will have a lot of foot traffic if you provide a game for people. People in Beaumont, unlike Houston, will come and play. It's just there's
Yes,
not
sir.
a lot to do here, and so.
Would it satisfy the board if we did remove the dartboards from there and just made it an open space, if that was okay and was allowed?
It's just
Actually, sir, and I tell you, this is only my perspective, and I'm one view of 5 up here. The promises you make are great, and I hope that if you're granted this, that you keep them. But when we make a decision, the decision is a permanent decision, and we can't know how long you're going to own that business, who you're going to sell it to, or how they're going to operate it. And so when I make the decision, I go back to just plain old flat criteria.
Yep.
What's the business? How's it configured? How does it operate in its essence? Does it fit the definition? And so I appreciate your offers to do things, but I don't think they're going to make a whole lot of difference in the decision that I make.
I understand. I understand the fact that this is a harder day and age to
It
take
is.
somebody for their word.
It is, and it's it's not just I don't distrust you, but I recognize that it's a permanent decision, and none of us going to live forever.
Yes, sir.
When I see selling bar stools and a table, and then you come up with a dartboard, and you saying I think you said something about an hour or something. You go eventually, it's gonna get 2 in there, 3 in there, 4 in there, and you gonna be packed in there. Okay, it's not gonna be a to go. They gonna want to. Anytime you sit bar stools at a bar, they gonna wanna sit and drink. And if you saying it's a to-go,
Correct.
it's to go, then why are you putting a bar in?
Because we have to per the state laws of having some
Okay,
form of
okay.
seating though.
Okay,
So basically, so the specific use permit requirement for the city is for them to review the parking requirements, lighting requirements, all those things that go with that building, for them to say, all those residents around there, to our city, that this establishment meets those criteria. That's all that specific uses permit is for.
Okay.
I mean, and so what they're asking you to do is not burdensome, okay? Does it delay you a little bit? Yes, but it fits the intent. What you're asking us to do is to take our city ordinances and go, shh, doesn't matter. That's where we
No.
set, that's where we have to set and decide,
Right.
is it really such a hardship? Is it really such a hardship? And yeah, I know it delays you a little bit of time, but your architect already has a site plan. I mean, those requirements, that's why I asked you.
Right.
Have you seen those requirements? You probably have everything to put together to turn in that permit by the 23rd of December, already prepared.
To be on the hearing list, yes, sir. Well, one, I'd like to apologize if I ever came across as somebody who wanted to throw out any kind of ordinances as far as the city goes. I fully respect this city and this town, but when I'm looking at an establishment primarily engaged in the retail of on-premise liquor, I'm telling you right now that this place was designed to not be that way. The other shops that are set up are not that way. They're all for off-premise. So this is not a drinking place. The only reason why it can even be considered that way is because we are strictly fulfilling minimum seating that TABC and the state require out of us. Now, as far as the SUP goes, I hope it is that easy. If it's really just going to be a 2-month impediment for me, so be it. But I'm worried I'm not going to get it and I'm going to be out of money and that I basically have to start over again. That's my biggest concern. And I was hoping you gentlemen might be able to see that today, be able to understand that 5813 does not apply to me. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions of the witness? Anything else you want to say, sir?
I'd like to say I'll do anything it takes to get this one done. It's not looking pretty right now, but thank you all very much. Again, this is not an establishment where I intend to, or plan and do anything it takes to keep people off and out. And I would like people to come just strictly through the drive-through. I would lock my doors if I could legally every day, but TABC will shut me down if I locked my front doors every day. If I didn't have seating inside, TABC would shut me down. So I am between a rock and a hard place, and the rock is the state's requirements, and the hard place is the city's requirements. And I just hope you are all able to empathize and understand that.
We do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Anybody else, before we close the evidence, anybody else want to speak for, against, or otherwise make a comment on file number PZ 2021-404? Hearing none, let's have a little deliberation. In my mind, looking at this, bright, technically savvy administrator could cubbyhole this business in any one of several spots. And unfortunately, for business people, sometimes that's just administrative discretion. And if it fits, it's there. And the rest of it is satisfying criteria. That's my observation.
I think the city initially heard drive-through and that's all they thought it was gonna be, and then when they saw some more than that, it changed.
Well, and I've been in places, not been in them, I've driven by them, that were set up as a beverage bar that handed drinks out the window. And they don't do that here.
They do in Louisiana. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, they definitely do.
I understand.
We actually have a daiquiri factory here on College. There's two of them. There's Sweet and Serve, and then there's a daiquiri factory on College.
How do they do it?
They seal them and they put them out the window, but you can go inside, I guess.
I
Sam's, they have one by Sam's.
Really?
Okay, all right. We ready to do a motion? We got one more item to hit. We're already at 4:20.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. All right, is there a motion on file PZ 2021-404?
I move that we deny the appeal.
All right, is there a second to the motion to deny?
I second.
All right. Mr. Beavers moves, Mr. Hilliard seconds the motion to deny PZ 2021-404. Would you call the roll for a vote, please, ma'am?
Chairman Tamaez,
I'm in favor of the motion to deny.
Board Member Beaver,
In favor of the motion to deny.
Board Member Hilliard,
In favor of the motion to deny.
Board Member Rowe,
In favor of the motion to deny.
and Board Member Sorrell.
In favor of the motion being denied.
All right. Let's pick up PZ 2021-405. I'm sorry that you folks have had to wait so long to get here. This is about a paved surface reduction request from 2 feet to 10.5 inches.
And can I say something real quick before Mr. Brenner leaves?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Brenner, we're not trying to hurt your business.
No, sir, I understand.
And I'm gonna tell you, I filled out specific use permits multiple times in my profession. That's what I do, and I'm sure Jeff has probably done some too. And it's, the city is not anti-business.
I understand.
We just have to look at the intent of our ordinances and our.
You have to
I wish you the best. I think you've got what you need to apply.
Well, I thank you all for seeing me again today.
Sure.
You have to apply Eden Slate, you have to apply by the book. This is a different shop. This is something that's fairly new. I know you mentioned earlier that you have a couple here. We plan on being a little bit different than them, but I hope to see you all after we get our SUP. Hope to see you all in driveway.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. It's all right. It's appropriate. Let us have the staff report on this next item, -405.
Ms. Semino with Birdson Services on behalf of George Fontenot is requesting a variance to the minimum pavement setback requirement for the property located at 2708 Sabine Pass Avenue. They are requesting a minimum setback to be reduced from, they are requesting the setback to be reduced from 2 feet to 10.5 inches from the exterior side property line. If granted, Mr. Fontenot will be able to keep his existing detached garage where it currently is situated on the property. Birdson Services is a local company that has participated in the GLO Disaster Recovery Program to facilitate building structurally sound homes and mitigate future flooding hazards for homes that have been affected by natural disasters.
You gave these last time.
So Sabine Pass is going this way, Robert's right here, it sits on the corner
They're trying to help these.
with the street frontage towards Sabine Pass. So, with the street frontage off of Sabine Pass, this is now the side property line, and they are wanting the pad to extend this way, 10.5 inches to be reduced this way so that they can keep their garage here. If they needed to scoot that back to 2 feet, I believe that they would have to move the garage or he'd have to get rid of it.
So Dean, let me ask you this. So what we're looking at is just a driveway apron basically coming up to the garage? Is that what we're looking
It's-
at this?
Yeah.
The
But you're
concrete
looking at
pad,
a required
that's over here.
pad.
And the only reason we're looking at it is because it's situated on the side property line, technically, because the front property line is over here. So the ordinance reads that it's rear and side property
So let me ask
lines.
this, if that driveway was at full width, we wouldn't be talking about this.
Right. If it connected here.
You're right, if it was full width driveway.
So
Well, or if it went out to Sabine Pass, the front of the house, you run it to the front of the house, you wouldn't worry about touching the pavement.
so the pad has to be 20 feet.
The pad has to be 2 feet from the property line. But they're requesting for it to be 10.5 inches
Edge
from the
of a
property
driveway-
line.
Edge of a driveway in the city has to be 2 foot off the side property line.
I understand that, but, and the way I read this, there's a federal requirement when they put this in, that they put the pad in at a certain dimension or square footage. We'll ask her about it, she can tell us more specific.
Okay.
Okay, anything
So-
else?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so this is the site plan.
Yeah.
This was this morning, subject property. And then this is the side, the garage where he's wanting to keep. As you can see, there are ditches right here. So that's the orientation that we're looking at. And Ms. Semino is here.
Right. And is there, and notices went out?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. 0 in favor and 0 in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the witness? All right. You want to speak to us? Okay, come up, identify yourself, state your name, tell us who you are and what you're working on, and then tell us what you want to, and then we're going to ask you a couple of questions.
Excellent. So I'm April Semino. I'm with Birdson Services. We're a builder working with the Texas General Land Office to rebuild Harvey-affected homes. And so in this case, we have a house that we're going to be demolishing, and the client would prefer to keep their detached garage because in the program, we provide very minimal things. We don't give garages and all that stuff. So right now, you can see how he's got his driveway coming off of that side street to the existing detached garage. The GLO requires that all of our houses be handicap accessible and have a handicap accessible parking pad, which is why those parking pad dimensions are 20 by 14 instead of being the standard 9-foot width for a driveway. If we could have, we would have just done 9 feet all the way from the garage to the street and nobody would have even noticed. It was a sidewalk or approach. We did attempt for the GLO to go ahead and go back the full width being 14 feet so that also it would still just be 14 feet all the way down. GLO won't allow it. They said GLO said it can only be 20 by 14 and then it has to narrow down to that smaller width for the approach portion. So we ran into an issue where it ends up only being, I think, 10.5 inches instead of 2 feet for that actual driveway to the approach portion.
And I know this is, one way or another, see, there's 2 doors in this garage.
Mm-hmm.
And he's using both sides, even though he's got a primary run that's unpaved. Explain to me why you didn't turn this pad 90 degrees and spread it across the entire front of the garage so he's got a clean pad going into both doors.
I would love to do that, but the GLO won't allow us to. The GLO will only allow it to be 14 feet width maximum, which is your 9-foot standard plus 5-foot additional for a handicap accessible way. So the maximum width that I'm allowed to go is 14 feet, and then the depth is 20 feet, and that's the minimum and maximum. It can't go
But if you look
further.
at it from the back door of the house,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at the width.
Yeah, it's for when you drive your car in. You
Okay.
come in, you have 9
Yeah, I
feet. You open your
understand.
door. You've got like a
Yeah.
if you actually had a wheelchair, which of course this client doesn't, but if this client did have a wheelchair, they would need to open their car door and have 5 feet to be able to have a wheelchair thing in their
Well, you
van
would.
or something.
You would be driving on the pad and you would have actually, you'd have a
Yeah,
lot of room to get
it'd be
out.
nice. And City of Port Arthur has a 2-car off-street parking requirement, so in that case it would be a 20 by 20. But unfortunately, Beaumont's just one
Well,
car
Beaumont
off-street.
needs to be more stringent in their requirements.
They're all
That's the
doing
first
it.
time I've
City of
ever said
Orange,
that.
City of
but-
Port Arthur. Yeah.
All right, all right. I understand.
It would be an improvement from what they currently
It is
have.
it is
And
an
they can
improvement.
add-
I was just hoping it could be an improvement over the improvement.
Yeah, they can and probably will add more concrete. I could see with that being 2 cars right there, they're probably going to want to add some more concrete, which they can do after we hand over the keys to them. But the GLO won't let us do it prior.
Because if you look real
Unless
close,
y'all say we have to.
the driveway, what they're showing is they're only gonna pave that much of the driveway.
I know.
But that culvert's gonna be there and that's gonna be grass just like it is right now.
I know. Well, but I'm looking at
Yeah.
they're going to run into one door, not the other,
Right.
and they're not going to cover the other door of the garage.
Not with their funding,
Not with the 14 feet.
not with their funding.
Not with their funding.
Not with our funding, no. Not with the free portion of it, no.
I understand.
The 14 feet doesn't create the problem, it's the 20 feet. Does it have to be 20 feet, or could it be 18, 18 and a half, 19?
It has to be 14 by 20. That is
Okay.
the only thing
See,
we can
and
go
that's
with.
what
And
I-
we can
that's-
go bigger, like 20 by 20 if the city or
Not
county
small.
ordinances allow for it. So I guess if there was some other solution making it bigger for y'all, then I could say, well, hey, they said that we had to do it. In that case, I
Well,
might be
that-
able to get approval.
Well, and here's
Yeah.
the deal. Here's the deal. If we give you a variance that allows you to get 10.5 inches from the pavement,
Mhm.
that's 10.5 inches across that whole run of pavement.
Mhm.
That's not 10.5 inches across 14 feet.
Right.
Okay? So if we give you the variance, you got the authorization to do it. Where do you go with that?
As far as,
As far as
Mhm.
making the pad bigger?
well, if it was
They can't unless your rules, the city's rules require it.
Right.
Well, and see, what I don't understand is, if the width is 14 feet, you're putting this in there, it's 9 plus 5, why 20 feet? What difference does it make if it's 20 feet long?
I guess because in other situations you would have just a
Like a
9-foot
long
approach
car or
coming up to it.
something.
Maybe it's a long driveway and the GLO picked 20 feet. I don't know.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I'm the builder that works for the state.
Or 20 feet.
Are about 18 feet, but you got the curb bumper and everything,
Yeah,
so they
I
probably
understand.
just rounded off to 20.
They
You gotta have a
probably-
minimum of
Makes sense.
18
Yeah.
for a parking space.
I wouldn't build a garage any shallower than 22, so.
But I mean, that's what, they've gotta get that car off the right of way.
I
Give that
understand.
20 feet.
I understand that their rules
Understand.
are pretty,
Right.
I just
A lot
curious.
of times we see garages like this, and it's not even like a close call, and we just tell them, "I'm really sorry, we're gonna have to knock it down." But in this guy's case, it was really close, and I was like, "Yeah, it's worth a shot for me to try," because he'd like to keep it, of course, you know.
I just needed to hear that there's no.
I just want to hear. I want to hear the
no
options.
variance on the 20 feet requirement.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard requirement there that I can't get around. If I can't do the 14 by 20, I will have to demo the garage.
I guess, and this can.
Okay. All right. So there we are with that. You guys still with us?
Yeah, we're just
Okay.
looking at the.
And you have a question for this witness?
No, we don't.
Okay.
So it's not the whole width of the garage?
No,
It's not. It's also not the whole width of the approach, which I did try on my initial site plan to the GLO and couldn't squeeze it by them either. So tried a few things through them before I came to y'all.
All right. So we've explored that,
It'll be a nice improvement though.
but it would be an improvement. All right. You ready to? We need discussion, or somebody ready to make a motion?
Wanna make a motion?
All right. Joey, make a motion.
I make a motion, we approve file BZ 2021-405.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Second from our new member. Let's call the roll, have a vote, and let's go.
Okay. Chairman Tamayo?
I'm for it.
Board Member Beaver?
For it,
Board Member Hilliard?
4.
Board Member Rowe? And Board Member Sorrell?
Forward.
All right. Is there any other business to come before this group? And if not, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
That's not even.
Ms. Reed, you and I are going to have our conversation another day, because I want to spend more than the next 15 minutes.